Hello, welcome back to another episode. Thanks for joining me. It's great to have you back with me. This is an episode all about the things that stop us moving forward when we say we want to move forward. So in normal language, we call those excuses. In the personal development world, they call them limiting beliefs. We're going to go through the most common excuses, the most common limiting beliefs I hear as to why people don't change, so I can give you a way to get past them. Let's dive straight in. I recently actually did a survey of my people on my mailing list to see what are the things they struggle with, what are the most common things that hold them back, and this list basically is what came out of that and other things I've heard. The two most common ones are the ones I hear time and time again, and they are that people don't make changes, don't do the things they want to do in their life because they don't have enough time, or they don't have enough money, or both. So if that is you, if you are sitting there thinking, well, I'd love to change my life, Paul, but I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time, the first thing I recommend everyone to do, because the work I do is in three parts. It's emotional, it's psychological, and it's real life stuff as well. So there's practical stuff that loads of people miss out on, loads of therapists and especially therapists miss out on because they focus on the emotional stuff or the psychological stuff. So what I would do if you think you don't have enough money or time to change your life, the first thing to do is sit down and do an audit of both of those things, or whichever one is the most poignant for you, the one that's holding you back. So if it's your money, sit down with 3 months of bank statements and go through and find out, calculate where you're spending your money right now. If it's time, do the same thing with your time. A hack to do this, a cheat to do this, if you have a smartphone, is to go to the settings on your smartphone and see how much time you spend on your phone every day. Anybody who tells me they don't have enough time to do things to change their life, that is the simple answer to it. We find enough time to go on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on any social media app, to watch TV. And it's the same with money. What you'll find by doing an audit of your time and money is where your priorities currently are. I've had this conversation recently with coaching clients that the reality is we all have priorities. We just often aren't conscious of them. And the way to find out what your priorities in life are to do these audits, because you will see where you spend your time, your money and your energy. And where you spend your time, your money and your energy is where your priorities are. Now, if you decide that you want to change your life, you need to look at those priorities and decide what you're willing to change, because there will be money you're spending on other things that you could redirect to changing your life. There is time you're spending on other things that you could redirect to spend on changing your life. It's a question of how much you want to do it. When I first started this path, I basically put money aside for my living costs and everything else I threw into this because it was that important to me. Now, it depends where you are on how desperate in your life you are to change. That's a sliding scale. But wherever you are on that scale, it's time to look and stop making excuses and say to yourself, if I want to change my life, sooner or later I'm going to have to invest some time and or some money into doing that. If you don't have enough money to do stuff, there's loads of free resources online like this stuff that you can spend time doing, or you can use extra time to make more money to pay for therapists or coaches or courses. But the most important thing is you're honest with yourself and you go through both your time and your money where it's currently going at the moment, and you're ruthless with it. Is there anywhere, where are the places you can make changes that frees up time and money to help you in your life? And if having done that audit, you realise you're happy with where the time and money is spent and you don't want to change your priorities, be honest with yourself about that as well, because one of the ways we can change our life, which seems really counterintuitive for someone like me to say to you, is to let go of the story that we want to change our life. Because the reality is we do the things in life we want to do. So if you're not prepared to make sacrifices of money or time in stuff you're currently doing to change, maybe you don't want to change that badly, and that's okay. Allowing yourself to say, it's okay, I'm okay as I am, is an overnight way of making your life better. So think about that as well. On the flip side of that, something I often hear when I'm trying to get stuff available to people at a low cost is it's too good to be true. So one of the things I'm constantly trying to do with this stuff is make it available to people for free or at a low cost. And the irony is that sometimes people say, well, that's too good to be true then. it's hard to answer that question, because the only way to find out if something is too good to be true is to try it. And with my stuff, with other people's stuff, if it's, my opinion would be, if it's a low cost and it's a low risk, it's worth trying it. Try something for a month, try something for a couple of months, and see if it fits you. If for that you have to sacrifice one night out or one pair of new shoes or one meal, then it's worth doing, just to check whether something is the right fit for you. And if it does turn out that something was too good to be true, at least you tried it, and at least you know, and you're not just stopping yourself trying to make that step with the excuse. The next one I often hear is that this work just won't work. Someone will say, it just won't work for me. Whether people have done loads of therapy or coaching or personal development work already, or whether they've done none, they say this won't work for me. Or I sometimes hear people saying, I know nothing will work for me. The sad reality of that is, for some tough love, is that is our ego talking. It's our ego trying to protect us from making changes. We haven't got time in this video to go into the details of that, but our ego is so crafty. It's been developed since we were little kids to protect us. And the irony is that even if we're miserable in life, our ego knows that we are safe, so it wants to keep us in this place. So it's constantly trying to stop us moving away from who we currently are, because that would be dangerous to the ego that's been built up. And it's that ego that tells us we're so special that none of this work will work for us. Our problems are so much more damaging and so much deeper than other people's. I've been there myself with this, and I can tell you from experience, moving past that is the most important thing we can do. I wish as a gift I could give to everybody, including you, the privilege I have of, through being a coach and working with people, I get to see behind the curtain into so many people's lives. And something I realised over time is, one of the most common things is that we all think our problems are just our problems. And what you realise doing this job, in the privileged position I'm in this seat, is that we're all experiencing the same problems. I often say we're all living the same life in different houses. No matter who I've coached all around the world, from different backgrounds, different religions, different nationalities, different genders, different ethnicities, different sexualities, our problems are all the same. So I guarantee you, whatever problem you're facing, no matter how bad it is, this work can help you. I have helped people who have done no work. I have helped people who've done loads of work. There are testimonials on my website, if you want to go and check them out, where there are people who say, look, this work will meet you wherever you are. One of the big things I do is explain it in ways that are easy to understand. People who've come to me who've done lots of therapy and coaching in the past have said that this stuff has helped them to join the dots and fill the blanks of things that they didn't understand before. The reason I'm able to do that is that's what I've done. I'm passing on what I've learned. So I've been learning all this stuff from therapists and coaches and books and podcasts and great minds from all around the world, and I've filled in the blanks myself from all those places. So then I'm able to say to you, this is what I've found, this is what I found helped in that specific situation, and that's why it helps so many people. For people who haven't done anything, if you've done no work whatsoever, it's easy to understand and it's easy to follow, which makes it less frightening, less intimidating, so it works for you as well. The next limiting belief I hear, and is one that actually led to me starting to do this work in the first place, is people say to me, I shouldn't have these problems, Paul. They're ashamed of the problems because they look back and think, well, I had a nice childhood, I've had a nice life, why do I feel depressed? Why am I anxious? Why do I have anger issues? Why can't I make changes? Why can't I stick to things? Why do I have weight problems or addictions or problems with my kids or relationships? And the reality was that was one of my big breakthroughs. If you go back to my origin stories, the early videos or episodes of this podcast or YouTube channel, that was one of my issues. When I started learning about this, I could understand how people who'd experienced serious trauma as kids had problems in their adult life, but I didn't think that was me. I had a lovely upbringing, a lovely mum and dad, lived in a nice house, was never hungry, went on family holidays. But what I realised was that the problems we have in later life come from trauma as a child, and everybody experiences trauma as a child. It doesn't matter how nice your upbringing was. Trauma to children is different to trauma to grown-ups. That's a huge topic that I go into in more detail in other places, in other episodes. But just know that there is nothing to be ashamed of. No matter what your background is and what your upbringing was, if you have problems, they are absolutely valid and they are absolutely justified. And another one I see on both ends of the spectrum is people's age. People use their age as an excuse for not doing this work. But the irony is, some people will say they're too young and some people will say they're too old. And I often wish I could put those groups of people together and say, look, you're saying you're too old, but these people are saying they're too young. Think of the irony of that. All I can say is, no matter how old you are, this work is worth doing if you want to change your life. I have worked with people from their 20s right up into people who are in their 70s. It's never too late. If you want to change your life, it's never too late, because whatever time we have all got left on this planet, always remember that. I always say this to my mum, who's in her late 70s and she doesn't like it, but none of us know how much time we've got left on this planet. So you could be 70 years old and you might still have 20 years left, whereas I'm 43 and I might only have 2 years left. We just don't know. So if you are old or older in years and you think it's not worth it, all I would say is think about being on your deathbed and looking back. And what if you did have an extra 5, 10, 15, 20 years between now and when that moment is, and you could have made those the best years of your life? Wouldn't that be worth it? That's the way I'd approach this. It's never too late. I'd get started now. If you're young, God, I wish I'd started this when I was young. I only started this work when I was 38 years old. I wish someone had taught me it when I was 15 or even younger. I've got 5-year-old and 4-year-old stepsons now, and we're starting to teach them the basics of this work in a way that kids will understand, because it will completely transform their lives. It should be taught in school. We should all know this from a very early age. So whenever I see young people who are doing this work, I take my hats off to them. I'm jealous of them. I think it's amazing. If you are young, now is the time to do this. You will change your life and make it so much easier, and you will avoid so much pain and suffering by doing this now. And one of the last excuses, limiting beliefs I hear is people saying they don't want people to know that they're seeing a therapist or working with a coach or working on their problems, because there is still a stigma attached to it. In some ways in our society, it's getting better. It's better than it used to be, but there is still that problem for some people. I know what that felt like when I first started. I've got a story about, I was seeing a therapist in the city centre where I worked, and I remember going into the building and where the therapist was, and when I came out I bumped into someone who worked in the same industry as me, and I was petrified that they'd know I'd just been to see a therapist, and what would they think of me. And my attitude to that's completely changed, but I've been doing this for 5 years now. But if that is you, that's completely understandable as well, and it's valid. The beauty of doing this work is you can do it in private. It's videos, it's podcast episodes. People don't need to know. I would encourage you over time to get to a place where you don't feel ashamed of it and you accept it and you're proud of the work. I've reached a point where I'm proud of this work that I do now. It's very rare that people do this, even in this day and age. The strength and courage it takes to do work like this is huge. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. And at the same time, we can ease our way into that. So you can take time, you can do it in private, you can figure out all this stuff before you get to a place where you're comfortable talking about it to other people. So that's it. They're the most common excuses and limiting beliefs I hear. I hope some of that resonated with you. I hope it helps you get past some of those things. Just know that if you want to change your life, the reality is we just need to do it. At some point, we just need to get started. I would encourage you to do that, whether it's with my stuff or with other stuff that resonates more with you. Start taking steps today. Start taking little steps every day, every week, every month. There is no rush. The best way to do this stuff is in your own time and however it feels best to you. And if you feel ready right now to start making some changes, if you want to strike while the iron's hot and do something now, which I would encourage you to do, if you feel motivated, if you feel ready to do it, the best thing you can do is just get started. Click on the next episode of this podcast, go to this next episode on YouTube, and I'll talk to you about what I can do to help you from here. I look forward to seeing you over there.